Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer praising the passage of the One Big Beautiful Bill as an historic step forward for the working class.
It was the most pro-worker piece of legislation that we will ever see really in this country right now. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That matters to the American worker because we don't want to take their money and give it back. We want them to keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their pockets currently, and that's what they're excited about.
Labor Secretary Lori Chavez DeRemer joins us now. Madam Secretary, thank you so much for joining the program. We just heard you there calling this the most pro-worker piece of legislation that you've ever seen. And I'm sure that American workers across the country are saying, I'm all ears. So is there a plan in place to get cabinet members or Trump administration officials out there to message this law? Or is the plan to let the legislation speak for itself?
Well, certainly the legislation does speak for itself, but it is important to the president for us to continue to talk to the American people. That is what he tasked us to do, to work together, be out on the road, don't be in Washington, D.C., go talk to the American worker. That's what I'm doing. I have been spending my time on the ground. Actually, right before the One Big Beautiful Bill, I was in 7 states in 9 days to talk about what this legislation could do for the American worker. And honestly, that was to help them keep more of their hard-earned dollars in their own pockets.
So how much more of their hard-earned money will the average American get to keep thanks to this bill?
Well, when you think about no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, when you think about increased child tax credit, when you think about expansion of Pell Grants for new skilling of, the American worker, those are important to men and women of this country. When we also think about the jobs numbers, we saw 4 months in a row those numbers tick up. They're keeping more of their hourly wages. They're keeping more of their hard-earned dollars, and they have the opportunity to work more often. That's what the president has done with the negotiations on tariffs, with bringing American companies back to this country, investing trillions of dollars into the American worker, and now we're seeing that on the ground. And that's the message that I want to take to them and then bring the American worker story back to the president.
Okay, so the Labor Department came out with some really interesting numbers recently. In January, the number of foreign-born workers declined by since January, by more than 543,000 jobs. And by contrast, the number of American-born workers has increased by 2 million over that same time period. Is the reason behind this President Trump's illegal immigration crackdown? And also, what kinds of jobs are we talking about here?
Well, the promises made by the president were that he was going to pay attention to the American worker, and that's why you're seeing American-born jobs be increased. When you look up at the last administration, as you mentioned, under President Biden, 50% of those jobs went to foreign-born workers. That's not a promise that the president made to the American people. He said, I'm going to focus on you. Every decision that the Department of Labor makes, and every decision in conjunction with this administration puts the American worker at the pinnacle of every decision, and that's what's important to them, to know that they're being put first. He attended the steelworkers mill. I was with him there. I have been to the RV Capitol in Indiana. I have been to Michigan. I have been to Pennsylvania. Manufacturing jobs, the investments there on the ground. I've worked closely with the other secretaries. Lee Zeldin and I are talking about deregulation. The Department of Labor just took 63 deregulation actions in order to cut the red tape so that companies can invest more so these jobs can grow. That's what they wanted to see. That was the promise that the president made to the American people, and that's what he's delivering on.
Madam Secretary, we have about 30 seconds left. What happened to the threat from the left that American citizens won't do the jobs that illegal immigrants are willing to do? Because when I look at these numbers, I think, nope, the American citizen is willing to do those jobs.
Well, we see it in the numbers. Americans are willing to do the job. That's what we're out there to do. What we have to give them is the opportunity to have those jobs, that they can be skilled, upskilled, reskilled. We're moving around the country. 1 million new apprentices is my goal for the president. We are well on our way. We've increased that by over 170,000+ new apprentices since he took office, and we'll continue and we'll reach that 1 million goal for the American businesses so they have the workforce that they need. And again, those decisions are going to be on behalf of the American men and women of this country who built this country.
And there's a whole lot to talk about when it comes to trade and tariffs that will no doubt have an impact on the labor market as well. So So we would love to have you on the show very soon to talk about all of that. Lori Chavez-DeRemer, the 30th Labor Secretary and current one. We appreciate you joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.